Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to Rules as Written. My name is Matt Robertson, also known as Grape Ape, and thank you for joining us on our supersized New Year's episode. I'm joined by my co-host,
Stefan, also known as D and Bad Drunk Fun on a couple things out there.
And Stefan, look at all the guests we have with us tonight, all
it's
at one
too
time.
Much. It's too much.
Are we going to be able to handle this?
No, I think we need to kick people out already.
I mean, let's start off. I'm just going to go from left to right here on my screen. Tim, how are you doing? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, great. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Tim Satley, do some independent third-party publishing of Mutant Crawl Classic modules. Got a couple other things going in. Just finished doing the layout for one of the Gong Farmers. So it's just happy to be here and looking forward to having a good time tonight.
All right. Yeah, glad to have you. Bob, I'm sure the viewers know who you are, but if you'd be so kind as to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Bob Brinkman. I'm a freelancer with Goodman Games. I've worked on Original Adventures Reincarnated, DCC Lankmar, DCC Dying Earth, as well as other stuff. I'm also one of the hosts of the Sanctum Secorum podcasts, which keeps me kind of busy. But I am here to make sure that Matt gets corrected.
Elena, and we're using Zoom today, so is that mute button working for me? If I need to mute Bob, you got that? Hook me up, right? We're gonna jump right over to Bruce. Bruce, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you, Matt. Great to be here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, so I'm Bruce. They call me Brucifer on Discord and other gaming environments. I'm a big DCC fan and road crew judge. I run a lot of DCC online. If you go over to Dungeon Crawlers, there's a good chance you can jump in a game or be a player along with me, which is even more fun.
Outstanding. And going on to Cirrus. How are you doing, Cirrus?
Hey, I'm Cirrus. I think many people have played with me or played under me at some point in time. And I'm here specifically because of my, quote, unique interpretation of some of the rules at times.
Yeah, I brought Cirrus along because Cirrus usually agrees with what I say. So, I gotta, put some allies in the field right away.
Those are unique opinions.
Matt, we do have Matt, we share the same name.
Yep.
Little bonding there. Tell us how you're doing today.
I'm doing great. Happy New Year, everybody. I am a writer and a longtime gamer, and I've been doing some freelance writing for the 5e line for Goodman Games. So happy to be here. Outstanding.
James, first time on the show. We're very excited to have you on. How are you doing, sir?
I'm super excited to be here. I'm like the Paul Lind of Twitch shows, Goodman Games Twitch shows. Show up on them. Hey, we have a unique opportunity to like Hollywood Squares. We're like one person away.
This is true. I mean, we got a nice little setup. So what do you do, James?
Well, I'm proud to announce that I'm a freelancer for Goodman Games these days, as well as running my own publishing house. Just released the Kickstarter version of Cats of Ratlu to the backers, and it's going to go to the printer soon. So I'm just busy, lots of irons in the fire, always writing some stuff for DCC, which I adore.
Outstanding. Julian, it is great to have you on again. Introduce yourself, please, sir.
Well, when I'm not collecting my bling, driving my Vikings themed purple Hummer around, I'm just having fun doing a little writing for DCC, MCC, Nowhere City, American Survival Guide, and a host of others. And happy to be here. The rules, remember, the rules are not your master. The rules are your enemy. Your servant.
How do we go from beating the Vikings by like 20 points to losing to the Lions? The Packers never lose to the Lions.
Nobody loses to the Lions.
Hey,
Daniel, last but not least, thank you for joining us again. How are you this evening, sir?
I'm good this evening, and Happy New Year. Other than that, do a bit of writing here and there for Goodman Games and third-party publishers, app patron, and glad to be here.
Well, we're going to jump right into it, everyone. We're going to do some reviews of the most controversial questions from last year before we dive into a couple new questions. It's going to be a supersized episode, 10 different people, 10 different opinions. 10 different ways to use DCC and the rules, and I hope you guys have a blast. Our first question is, do dwarves get a second D dice with their shield bash attack? Do they get a second mighty deeds of arms with that second attack? I kind of think they do. I'm pretty sure Stefan and Bob said that they
You've chosen to
didn't.
die on this hill again.
We're gonna see what the other opinions out there, Bob. We're just gotta test the waters. So Elena, if you could cycle through handouts like 1A, 1B, 1C. 1A tells us that the dwarf gets the sword and board. They get a shield attack. A shield bash is a D14, so it's a separate action, right? It's a separate attack. And at the bottom of page 52, it says the dwarf adds their D die to this number, and as with all attacks, can attempt mighty deeds of arms involving the shield as well as his weapon. So that doesn't say also, doesn't include them both, as Bob pointed out during the episode. But then let's go over to handout 1B. On page 42, it explains the mighty deeds of arms for us in the warrior description. It says the mighty deeds of arms, they swing their pure, it's an exercise of pure physical prowess. They're swinging on chapel chandeliers, landing in pursuit of the foes, locked in mortal melee. The mighty deeds of arms turn the course of the battle. So these are meant to be action swinging, events whenever they do an attack. On our second paragraph, it says, prior to any attack roll, a warrior can declare a mighty deed of arms or short a deed. Now, it doesn't say every attack roll, it says a attack roll, any attack roll. So there again, we've got a little kind of, is it or isn't all attacks, but it does say prior to any attack roll. If we go to handout 1C on page 163, this talks about the mighty deeds in particular. A warrior can declare mighty deeds of arms or deed for short prior to any attack, right? So it's saying any attack. Let's just, who wants to field this one? Cirrus, what do you think? Do they get an extra attack on their shield bash?
So first of all, them not getting it is some of this elf BS propaganda stuff. Those elves trying to keep the dwarfs down. Of course, elves get it because it says each attack roll in version 8 of the core book. So each attack roll, and the shield's an attack roll.
So you get a mighty deed of arms with each attack roll. Is that right?
That's what it says.
What page are you referencing?
Specifically now, this is the 8th printing. So we're looking at page 52.
52. We do have that in handout 1B. Bruce, you had something you wanted to say about it?
Yeah, so I have a strong opinion about this because you're messing with that, with the attack modifier. I put it in the same class with a stat modifier or anything else that routinely affects that attack without any other disruption. So you're taking away part of the normal attack for that player that they can execute under normal circumstances.
And the warrior section says you roll that die once per round, even if you have multiple attacks. Done.
Bob.
And I would say that you would roll it once, but apply it to both the shield and the main attack.
Yep.
Oh, so wait, so you're going to roll a die and then declare a deed once you know you've succeeded? I'm a dwarf player in that scene.
You roll the die once. You roll the die once.
Declare what you're doing both with your main attack and your shield. If you get you roll the die once. If it comes up positive, you get both. If it doesn't, you don't. Easy.
Julian, what do you think?
I'm open. Throw me the ball. Oh, hey, what I'm saying is, I've got to bet you guys. First of all, they don't get a second deed, but you guys are having a good argument both ways, and both good points are being brought up. But there's a more important point that supersedes both the good and the bad, which is: have you ever tried to introduce DCC to new players at a con? And do you want to give a new guy running a dwarf or new gal running a dwarf a freaking second mighty deed to worry about when she's just figuring out he or she is figuring out the first one? Let's keep things simple at first level for the dwarf, and for anybody else who has a second attack, the Fossorian, anybody else who has a second attack, and just go with the warrior. The deed for the dwarf is as the warrior, and as Bob says, et cetera, But also just for as a practical matter, I game with, guys who love DCC, and there are people there who I would, if I could, I wouldn't let them have deeds. It's almost too much to manage as it is. So just in the pragmatic terms, yeah, one is enough.
I don't know if that's a good reasoning though, because if they're learning the system and they're already practicing deeds, if they're practicing one or two, they're practicing the same amount, right? With practice, you get perfection.
Yeah, but you're going to end up with,
you get the folks who are just struggling, go, I just want to do more damage. It's like,
then you just hand them the book and you say, look, you got deeds right here that are already worked out from Goodman Games.
Hang on though. So if we're saying that that a dwarf can use it for sword and board, even though it's any attack, not every, that means that by that same logic, if they have a second full action die, they're getting 3 mighty deeds per round, and a warrior can get 2 mighty deeds per round, which is again not the way it's written. Now I'll be the first to say, at my table, if you've got a second full action die, I let you have a second mighty deed because I like the cinematic experience of it, but it's not rules as written. But I wholly endorse it as a method of play.
It does say any attack, Bob. Bob, if we look if we look at handout 1E, right, the dwarf experience table modifier, and it's got those little asterisks for 1st through 10th level. It's got D3, 4, 5 with an asterisk next to it. And then if we go underneath that table 114 for the dwarf, it says a dwarf's attack modifier is rolled anew according to the appropriate die with each attack, right? So do you roll the D die differently for the shield bash, or does the same deed apply for the attack as it does for the shield bash?
As stated in the attack modifier, it's once per round. The keep in mind that DCC was originally written as a 5-level game, not a 10-level game, and that just never changed. And so you'll find stuff in there that does not reflect secondary actions.
So this should be taken out, this asterisk part?
It should be clarified, but it's not really contrary. Remember, dwarves get a deed like a warrior, and the warrior action section sets the precedent. You roll it once.
That asterisk, though, says at higher levels, and it's referencing 5 and above.
To me, the table Matt's referencing is extremely clear. Rules is written, the dwarf gets the die.
So we can't just ignore what one of the tables is saying.
Well, I'll say we sure can. As a judge at our own table.
Higher levels, they add a die and a fixed level. In other words, a D10 plus 3 is their D die. It's not saying they roll it twice. It has nothing to do with rolling it.
It says the attack modifier is rolled anew, though, and we can't say that asterisk is a leftover.
Plus 3.
It is rolled anew, and at higher levels you do this. Again, dwarves, it even states, dwarves get a deed die like a warrior. The warrior section is clear when it talks about the modifier that you roll it once.
Matt, even if you're rolling
round.
Even if you're rolling the attack modifier,
that's for the warrior.
And dwarves have a deed die like the warrior. It is the same set of rules. Dwarves can use their deed die on their shield, but you're only rolling the die once.
Because warriors don't have sword and board.
If the attack modifier is rolled anew each time, fine, re-roll your deed die. But the rules also say a mighty deed can only happen once per round. So keep rolling your funky D7 or whatever because you're at a high level.
Where does it say
but you
that?
Still only get. You're saying it's rolled anew?
What? No. Where does it say it can only happen once per round?
You've conveniently left out.
What are you talking about? I didn't leave out anything.
The argument he lost.
I didn't leave out anything.
Oh, there was more evidence.
We know
before,
who set these out.
But Elena doesn't have the correct evidence now.
Reference
you botched
the page.
The discovery
Reference
process,
the page
sir.
number. Let's go through. Let's go through our guests. Tim, what do you think? Sword and board. Does dwarf get an extra D die on their shield bash?
No. I think that when they roll, they have to describe what they're doing first, including their deed. They roll all 3. I would have them roll everything at once, so that way what the dice say is what the dice say. Now they can do a mighty deed involving their shield, but they're not going to get, they're not going to miss the deed on this and call another deed on the shield and then roll again for it. You either got your deed or you didn't.
Would you let them do 2 deeds? Well, I agree. I think the rules
no, it's one deed per round, and that deed can either include the shield or not, and typically the deed isn't something that's doing damage. It's something that's, you're trying to disarm the opponent. You're trying to knock them down, knock them prone. So the deed, you can use your shield bash to try and, knock someone up against a wall and hold them there. And if the deed goes off, there you go. Then it did. But you just get 1 deed roll per round when you roll your attack and your deed at the same time.
See, I'm thinking deed, swipe with the axe, knock him down, shield bash deed, hit him in the nose, blind him. It all makes sense to me in my mind.
Something out.
Go ahead, Dan.
Turn 2 page. Sorry, there's artwork on it. The warrior page. The first page. The wording is that this is the same die used for the warrior's attack and damage modifier each round. It does not say the same roll. It says the same die. And if you look under the warrior table on page 44, it says a warrior's attack modifier is rolled anew according to the appropriate die with each attack, which is consistent with what it says for the dwarf and not consistent, Bob, with what you're saying.
The warrior always makes a new roll with this die in each combat round, period. A new roll each combat round. It's right above what you read in the warrior section. It certainly applies. It's as written once. Again, if you've got two full actions, I give you those multiples. Paragraph? That's not rules as written.
I think Bob is talking about page 42 under the attack modifier.
Yep, which is where this whole thing starts.
I mean, it does. You can use the reference for the warrior as the mighty deeds, but they're 2 different classes, right? Warriors don't have a sword and board, so the mighty deed of arms is going to be somewhat
work
different.
The same way.
Yeah. Okay.
Under the dwarf, mighty deeds of arms, like warriors, they can perform mighty deeds of arms in combat. See the warrior entry for a complete description.
Yes,
they work
let's
like
look at
warriors.
The warrior entry. Here. Attack modifier. On 1 attack, the die may give him a +1 to his attack roll and damage roll. On the next attack, the die may give him +3.
Yes, because they're talking about separate rounds.
That you always make a new roll with die each combat round. It does not say
new roll
when
each
the warrior has multiple attacks at higher levels. The same D die applies to all attacks.
Yes, 1 roll applies to all attacks.
And so you're saying just because it says those 2 words, combat round, that locks it into 1 roll per round.
Yes, otherwise it would be every attack.
Bob's right there, because it actually does say that the die roll that you get applies to all attacks that round.
All right,
it
so
does not say that you need to take them sequentially or that the D die effects cannot apply to those attacks.
So just like the same D die applies to all attacks in the same combat round, we know that the attack modifier is going to apply to the shield bash, right?
Yes,
it does.
So this is talking about the attack modifier. This isn't talking about the mighty deed of arms, even though it's the same dice.
It's the same roll.
Actually,
you have to.
It is the same roll. I'm not arguing with that
because it actually does say when the warrior has multiple attacks at higher levels, the same deed die applies to all attacks in the same combat round. It doesn't say the same die roll.
Right. So the same D die can apply to each attack. It could even be the same die roll, but the mighty deed of arms, you go back to the mighty deed of arm page, you get one prior to any attack roll.
There's a lot of
any attack roll. Go ahead, Bruce.
There's a lot of language that talks about 1 die, and then there's some ambiguous fuzzy bits at the end of paragraphs that make it seem like maybe it's not. It seems pretty definitive that it's 1 die.
All right.
And the other bits are just sort of, I don't know, poor syntax.
I'll say we're 20 minutes in and we're on question 1.
All right, so let's
we're
keep
not
going.
going to change minds.
we know how we know how I feel. We know how Bob feels. Bruce, what do you think? Shield bash? Do they get a extra mighty deed of arms? Yes or no?
So I'm weird. I give the dwarf 2 deeds and the warrior 1.
All right, Cirrus.
That's my ruling.
Extra D die on the shield bash, yes or no? Yes or no?
Same deed die applied to both attacks. So you
Extra
roll
deed. Extra mighty deed of arms?
extra deed, yes.
Matt, extra mighty deed on the shield bash?
1 deed bonus is the same for both rolls.
All right, James, extra mighty deed of arms on the shield bash?
One deed only.
All right.
I do like the idea of like if you're 5th level or higher, 2. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, a full die 20 makes a lot of sense. Lower, like the sword and board, no.
Julian,
Julian's
all
trying
right.
to send a
You
letter
got
to the editor or
flashcards.
something.
Julian, what does your flashcard say?
It says Conan is more than Gimli. It's not called sword and dwarfery. It's called sword and frickin' sorcery. So that's it.
Gimli is not in.
Lord Howard didn't need any frickin' dwarves, and neither do I.
Daniel, you get the last word on this question. Do they get an extra mighty deed of arms with the shield bash?
They use the same die, but does not say they use the same roll. Each round they have to roll again. They don't get to keep it from round to round. But yes, they get an extra mighty deed.
All right, so let's jump on to question.
Anything that makes you roll a d14 for attacks and increase your rumble chance is good.
All right, so you can see the panel is still split, still up in the air, people, but whatever way you play it is the right answer. Is starting luck the maximum value it could ever have? Did we have anybody that wanted to address this question?
I think the answer is probably no.
All right,
Yes, for thieves. Yes, for thieves only.
I included this one because we had some people that wanted to discuss the luck one, but I wasn't sure which luck one. So let's go on to the next one. Can you use luck to lower a spell check result? And Stefan, this is where you disagreed with Bob, I believe. Why don't you go ahead and hit this one off, Stefan?
Yeah, I said, basically sometimes it's beneficial to not roll a 32 on your sleep check and send everyone to sleep for 100 years or what have you. So it would be luckier if that didn't happen. So use it to become a 31. Bob's rule was it was an additive bonus everywhere else, and it didn't make sense, but it might be a reasonable house rule. That was the gist of the conversation.
It's a good house rule.
If we go through the handouts, 3A talks about burning luck on page 95. Character can burn luck to affect their own dice rolls. Luck cannot be burned to affect the dice rolls of others. And let's see, except for halflings, luck is typically used to affect a character's attack, damage, spell, thief, and savings throws, but it can be used for other purposes. So we do have that caveat in the book. Character can declare their intent to burn luck before or after their dice roll. If we go on to handout 3B, we have the definition of the word bonus because it says they can get a one-time bonus. This is something in addition to what is expected or strictly due. If we go on to handout 3C, we've got a little clip from Harley Stroh here talking about Genghis Khan, not Genghis Khan the person, but Genghis Khan the convention. Says Raw does not permit selecting a lower result, but he does think there is a case to be made for choosing a lesser manifestation. What do you guys think? Anybody want to hit this one up?
No, absolutely. I don't think you can use luck to do this. There's a mercurial effect that allows you that kind of thing. It's part of the spell description itself, and so those spells that have it, yes, feel free. You have the mercurial effect that does that, yes, feel free. Otherwise, no. It's magic is what it is. Sometimes luck isn't going to play.
Yep.
Bruce, what do you think?
I think that you would be insulting your patron. What? I gave you this power and you refuse it? I don't like the idea of the mechanic of a sort of subducting the result with luck. No.
Tim, any thoughts?
I would say half the fun of both DCC and MCC is how swingy magic and mutations and things can be at times. And just like anything else, there's risk if you're going to use it. If you're going to burn luck, you need to have risk, and that risk may not always work out in your favor. So yeah, maybe you put everyone to sleep for 100 years. That's the way it works.
Daniel,
The die is spoken, and I'm right on with Bruce too, man. Yeah, you can't. You're gonna tick off your deity if you your patron if you refuse their help.
Daniel, what do you think about this one?
This is a case where I agree 100% with Bob. If you want to do that, that's a house rule, but that is not rules as written.
All right, and Matt, any
Yeah,
different thoughts?
No, I'm in agreement with everybody else on this one. It seems like it takes away some of the I don't know, some of the unpredictability of it, some of the volatility of the magic system in general.
Julian, you're the last one to be able to possibly throw a little controversy in here.
You're all wrong. So here's the deal.
Of course you say that. You're a Packers fan.
Julian,
No.
you're the individual who made a howling god in a setting with no gods.
Well, yes. But is there actually
Harsh. That's harsh.
spoiler alert? Spoiler alert. There may not be a god in them. Anyway, no, I mean, you guys are right, obviously, about how it's written. So, okay, fair enough. However, I think somebody already kind of made a really good point, and I'm just going to jump on that and say, you know what? I think it's really a good idea to get people to spend more luck, as Doug used to say. And I think there's every reason to say, you know, if you wanted to spend 1d3 luck to reduce it one level, or, you know, spend 3 luck, or I don't know, make it interesting. I mean, as written, no. But I think we as judges should start wheeling and dealing and going, how much luck do you want to spend? I don't know.
And then I would say, and maybe some patron taint to boot.
Sure. Yeah, possibly.
All right. Well, our last question about the luck adventure was, should characters gain luck after each adventure? When you guys are playing, do you guys hand out luck after the character is done? Daniel, do you give out luck at the end of an adventure?
I make use of leaving luck because it was a great addition to my con. On the other hand, if you are getting permanent luck back, that is a rare thing and you have to earn it.
Okay. Julian, do you give out luck at the end of an adventure?
I do, and I try to be liberal with it. My stuff is pretty deadly, and I am happy to give luck if they've spent a lot of luck. I think they should probably get some luck, but I will, with the caveat that classes that regenerate luck don't get a permanent luck. They get a luck token, kind of fleeting luckish to spend. Otherwise, things get way out of hand.
So let's say their maximum luck is 16. And they're already at 16. Do they then get that little fleeting luck token on top of that, or?
Well, I essentially, yes. I mean, they might be at 8 when the game ends, but next time we start, they'll be at 14 or 16 or something. So regardless of that, they're going to get a fleeting luck, not a full-time permanent luck.
All right, James, how do you feel about it? Luck at the end of the adventure.
I have given it out. I usually give it out. I've run into situations where you've got, you know, PCs that have pushed beyond, you know, their normal maximum and into like 18s, you know, and whatnot. So I think you have to be careful with when you give it out. And if they're that lucky, right, you know, maybe they don't necessarily need more. So I think it's kind of a case-by-case basis.
Bruce, you got a hubris game going on the Dungeon Crawler server. Do you give out luck after those adventures?
I do not. I give out luck for momentous narrative flair, good one-liners, and just really exceptional cleverness and guile during the game, but not at the end. Maybe sometimes, actually I have when it's plot related, like the sort of at the end of the thing, they did something that helped a lot of people or something, and I'll throw out some luck, but not by rote, no.
Serious, how do you feel about it? Because you get almost no luck being in the Reaver Express from me.
Oh, I burn it all the time. I burn it like it's going out of style because luck is there to burn. And I think a judge should give out luck if it's being used in the method it's intended for. And if the deeds of the players are awesome, cool, and enhance the other players' fun. Because if you burn luck or you do things at my table that enhances everyone's fun, you're getting luck.
All right, Matt, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I feel pretty much like Cirrus does. I think it's a currency, and it can be, I don't know, really fun to reward those like cinematic peak moments in the game, and then also sort of as you go into the downtime or whatever, rewarding the end of an adventure or a chapter with some luck, it can be cool too. It's sort of almost thematic, almost going back to that question from earlier, thematically sort of suggesting like the momentum and the fortunes of our heroes changing, or fortunes of our lead characters kind of changing and shifting in the world. So yeah, I kind of use it as a story element a little bit like that.
Tim, what about your adventures? Is there any precedence for luck at the end of those adventures?
Yeah, actually, so couple things. First of all, I absolutely love the fleeting luck mechanic from Lankmar. It is the best way to just to reward players right then and there for, you know, good play, for things that are going right. But when it comes to my Mutant Crawl Classics adventures, I've actually taken it to the next level. I've created an entire series of tables where when they get done with an adventure, they head back to the tribe and they roll a D4, a D6, a D8, a D12, and a D20. And each one is a separate table about how the results of what they went out and sought are reviewed by the tribe and how well they did. And I actually incorporated in their final roll where they get the things back. If they do really well on that, they're getting back stats that they burned. They're getting back things that they did. If they roll really poorly, they don't get anything. So it's once again making just the narrative a little more swingy as well. Actually, that one that's going to be published in Scientific Barbarian #5. So it's called Returning to the Tribe.
You said they have the opportunity to get their stats back. Can it ever go above the creation maximum, that their max number where it was created upon? Or
I believe, if I remember correctly, I believe I put in there that they can go above their original stat, but if it hits 18, they have to get a random stat for something else. Because I don't want someone getting up to 23, 24 luck. Granted, they'd have to go a boatload of adventures. But here's the thing, when they're going out on adventures and doing stuff, they're getting more experience and they're learning more. Yes, they're getting worn out and they're losing luck because they're burning it in that, but they're also becoming better warriors, better adventurers, and they should be rewarded by the fact that that experience is going to give them a little bit more when it comes to play in the future.
All right. Well, Bob, I had several people ask about these next series of questions. They wanted to weigh in on the monster creation episode.
I want to weigh in on this one real quick, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because this was actually one where my mind was changed during the show, because on page 361 it says that accomplishing certain objectives, which includes the objectives of individual adventures, luck is supposed to be a reward. So I give out more luck to players now because of this show.
Rules is written.
Although I'm still not a big, okay, you've completed the adventure, everybody take a point of luck or take 2 points of luck. I tend to give it out more during play for cool stuff, right? Which is what everybody is kind of going with. Like you found the desecrated corpse and the cleric takes a moment to reinter them. That's a really cool moment. That deserves a point of luck. But yeah, I give out luck so you can take it away.
All right. Well,
Yes.
We've got a lot of creative minds on this show. So when creating monsters, how do you determine a monster's hit dice, Julian?
I immediately go back to the Bible and I think to myself, if an orc is a D8, is it tougher than an orc or more, less tough than an orc or more tough than an orc? And then, so if it's tougher, then it's going to be higher than a D8 hit dice. And if it's going to be, weaker, like say a packer, then it's going to be like 4 or something. And then you kind of go, what's my, what am I doing here? Is this a 5d4 or a 6d8? Then you kind of start figuring out how many hit points do I think this guy has, and you kind of feel it out from there. But
there's a lot of discussion often with new creators on the Discord asking how to level up their monsters, what's the right hit dice or hit points for this adventure that they want to create, what's the right hit dice for first level, second level, etc. How do you know when to bump up to like 4D something? because that increases their critical, hit dice as well.
Yeah, I mean, only if you pay attention, but it certainly could. What I found is here's my quick rule that I use for improv all the time. You just go, hey, baseline is a D8 unless you think it's a lot tougher or a lot weaker. If that was good enough for guy X, it's good enough for me. And then you go, if it's 5 hit dice, it's AC +5. Its attacks are +5. Its saves are +5. And you adjust from there. You go, well, its saves are +5, but it's kind of stupid, so its will is lower, but its fort is higher because it's pretty tough. And you kind of just use that as a baseline, and you adjust a little bit from there. But you just use that rule of 5, as I call it. You can rock and roll with that all night.
And Daniel, you've got massive experience creating some of these, transferring some of these over monsters from the Fiend Folio over to DCC, as well as, numerous posts on your blog. How do you field the monster creation hit dice?
I did an entire blog post on creating monsters in DCC and reading that blog, which I just put in our chat, so that could go over to the main. In general, it's similar to Julian, except that everything in DCC follows kind of an everyman standard. You know what a peasant looks like. You know what a friar looks like. You know what a king looks like. You know what a first level warrior looks like. You should be able to gauge from those. If you want more hit points, but not terrible crits, you might consider using a larger hit die. If you want fewer hit points, but massive crits, you could use a lower hit die, D3, 63. And you can still make 6 hit points and still deal massive crits when they hits. You can make whatever you want in this game.
And you could also just have the monster already be wounded from some previous fight, and there's some dead adventurer in the corner, and then you've added some story to your whole scene, and you still get to have a tough monster, but now he has 33 health instead of 99.
Yep.
All right. Anybody else have any thoughts about choosing monsters hit dice when creating stuff?
So just say that there's this great on monsters in the book. There's this great line that says monsters don't play by the rules when generating your monsters. And that's what every judge needs to keep in mind. That specific line, monsters do not play by the rules. Why should they? Conan never knew what manner of foul beast he would face, yada, yada, yada. So you got to keep it lively. And I wouldn't use a formula. I would just, as many other judges here said, you got to use this gut feeling to determine it sometimes.
Yeah,
if you have a big PDF library, you can search in there for something similar, and maybe you'll find something in one of your many PDFs. But yeah, just winging it. Sorry, Tim.
Yeah, no worries. It essentially go ahead, Bruce.
Sorry, but I'm super lazy, and I just grab something that's similar, and it's so easy. Just grab something that's similar, and you can tweak it a little bit. But no, totally, there's a gut feeling, especially if you're working with a familiar group, you can kind of gauge what they can manage. That's part of it too, I think, is knowing your group, because monster is not a monster for 2-3 different groups. So that's part of it. That gut thing comes in really important when you're sort of, I don't believe in balance, but I believe in appropriateness for a group, right? This is the right encounter or whatever. But yeah, I think I advise folks to steal a lot and, know your group, go with your guts.
Yeah. I just say, I don't remember where exactly I found it, but there is a chart out there, DCC quick monster stats.
That is in crawl number 4, I believe.
Is that which one it is? Okay, because the thing that always got me was not how tough it was, like hit die wise and stuff like that, but was all the other stuff. What bonus, what saves should they have for fortitude, for reflex, for all the different things that are going on. So, and that was the nice thing about that quick monster stat sheet was it gives it to you all laid out right there. What type of monster it is it strong, is it weak, and then what number of dice. Okay, here's a baseline for you to go from, and then you make tweaks based on the monster, especially if you're creating it from scratch or if you're doing your own thing. Okay, you may have to bump something because this is a tougher monster than what the baseline is, but his fortitude save is going to be stronger.
James, in your Cats of Rathulu, is it Cats of Rathulu?
Ratlu.
Ratlu. Do you have any new monsters in that?
Yeah, there's a swarm of cats, so a clouder of cats that attacks the party at several different points in the adventure. So
how did you determine, what hit dice and what hit points, they were going to go with?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are going on, like when you're trying to decide on statting the creature. Who is it for? Low level, mid level, high level. So what kind of damage is it going to do on every attack? How many people is it going to be able to attack and around? Like, what's the intended? If you have a party of 4 to 6 people, you want it to be threatening. You don't want it to be a pushover. So, if it's a single monster, it's either going to have lots of hit points or lots of attacks in order to kind of just be able to solo the party. So things like that are important. So the swarm, and everybody's saying the same things too, in the sense that you look at what's already been printed. I mean, this is everything we're working on is based on the die 20 system. You're in theory, a lot of the same, mechanical, things are at play. So like the saves, they have good saves and bad saves and really poor saves. So you can kind of play around with those same elements on every single creature that you're working on. And so for getting it hit dice and deciding what to do with it is a swarm. Everybody's going to get attacked in a 20-foot area, and it's going to do a die 3 to everybody, their first level. I'm going to take down people before they can finish off the swarm of, like, I think it's 4 die 6 or 4 die 8 or something like that. People are going to go down.
All right.
That's what I want.
Yeah, that is what we want. So the next part of that is, how do we determine a monster's crit dice? And I just want to go around real quick. Do you guys, when you're creating stuff or playing or running games, do you even worry about the monster's crit dice? Tim, yes or no?
Well, I worry about how tough the monster is and how tough it's going to be for them to get it. And I basically have 2 rules. The first one is, if this is a game where I'm running with at the table and I'm doing something homebrew for my own group, I don't want something that's going to toast the entire group, because then everybody just gets pissed off, right? I want something that's reasonable, that's scary, that they feel like they've got a chance at. They don't want to walk into a room and get TPK'd in 2 seconds. If it's something for one of the modules or something that I'm creating for an adventure, I tend to go tougher and then flesh it out during playtesting as we're going through it. Hey, how tough is this thing? I think it'll do. I had one that I thought would be fairly easy, and it ended up TPKing 2 groups in 2 different playtests. So it's like, all right, I need to revamp this guy. So that just happens.
Bob and Julian, when you guys are making adventure modules for Goodman Games, does critical hit dice, when you're making monsters and stuff, does that even come into your head at all?
No.
See, whereas for me, if I'm writing a higher level adventure, it does. For a low level, not really. But when you start getting up to like 4th, 5th, 6th level, that becomes important, because at 4th, 5th, 6th level, bless can pretty much change everything and make a dungeon essentially a cakewalk if things don't go right. As I learned in some of the early Crypt of the Devil Lich playtests. So sometimes at higher level, it's not just about hit points and armor class, because when people are throwing spell results of 36 or are critting on an 18 through 20, you have to have something to kind of help balance that out.
So, and remember, fumbles and crits can be special for the monsters. They don't have to follow the rules. So your monster can do crits that cause corruption as per Flaming Hands, and they can have a special thing written underneath them that says, if they fumble while they're fighting the PCs on the catwalks, they just fall off. Right. So you don't need to be rolling all the time like you would for a PC.
Plus, I'm always looking for an excuse to give a monster a roll on the giant crit table.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, the last question we had was for monster creation was, how do you determine a monster's fumble dice? They've got Marzio made some nice, awesome monster fumble charts for us in the I think that's in one of the yearbooks.
A year that cannot be named. Goodman yearbook 8.
2020 maybe. So
don't name it.
But they go down to like results of 20. So I mean, obviously there's a precedence there where a monster can roll a higher crit dice or a fumble dice sometimes, depending on what. Instead of just humanoids wearing armor, let's talk about any kind of other monsters out there, right? That wouldn't wear armor. What would constitute them having a bigger fumble dice, and how would you figure it out? They don't have stats, so they don't have a luck stat that would affect their luck modifier. Matt, what do you think?
I usually keep fumbles and crits for monsters pretty loose and sort of situational. I tend to sort of improvise around what's happening at the game right then, and what might be most cinematic or interesting, while still kind of being within the bounds of reason for the creature, the room, the actual situation at hand. So I'm not a stickler for real specific results, and usually I'm juggling so many things that going to get another table is a little beyond me.
There's no precedence for it in the rule book anywhere on how to choose a monster's fumble dice. So could you just pick a result that you like out of the table? Why even roll for it? Julian, you got any thoughts?
I'm 100% with Matt. I will say that what I generally would do, just to flesh that out a little bit, is that I might have them miss their next attack. The Octolich's 8 arms get tangled up and he misses his next attack, or he slips and he's at -1 die on his next attack or whatever.
Exactly.
But honestly, guys, I worry about pacing a lot more than this stuff. I'm trying to keep things moving, keep it going, keep the beer flowing and the pizza munching, and the pizza's getting cold. I want a game. I don't want to hit the books ever.
Daniel, how do you feel about it?
The one thing that I really like the Marsu tables. I don't necessarily use them all the time. Sometimes it's just situational. The one thing that I will add is for a swarm, on a fumble, the swarm always breaks up.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot.
I put a crit roll on my blog for swarms, and that was a rule for, because 20 monkeys are not going to fumble at the same time in the same time. But the swarm breaking up makes a lot of sense.
That is a nice result.
I dig that.
Anybody else got any thoughts about how to determine a monster's fumble dice?
I think don't give them a fumble die. Just don't.
Serious?
I go thematically with it. I mean, if they've got chitinous skin, they're going to be a little more, not as agile, so they're going to have a higher fumble die. Fumble die is based on armor, so anything they have that's going to make them more cumbersome, okay, that's going to be a higher fumble roll or a fumble die. But if they're not, then they'll get that 4.
All right.
And I think in those situations, rather than focusing on the tumble, the more dramatic, the more important the encounter is with the monster, the more alien, the weird, the strange, the awesome the encounter. Oh my gosh. When something like that makes a fumble, it should be an awesome fumble. It should be a memorable fumble. Flip side, when it crits, it should also be a memorable, scar-inducing, emotionally scarring crit that takes place.
Well, I got to tell you, in a couple of zines, I think I've seen it at least 2 or 3 times now in monster stat blocks and like third-party zines or modules, and I can't remember which ones they are. Stefan might know. I've seen at the end of the monster stat, sometimes now there's being a crit and a fumble die added at the end of the stat block. Stefan?
I can't recall any specific ones that do that, but I have written those into a few stat blocks.
Crypt of the Devil Lich has that, Bob?
The Dungeon Denizens will too.
Yeah, that's new. I think we started doing it with Dying Earth, didn't we, Julian?
I was going to say, I've submitted those to editing with Jeff Seifert, who's a lot of the Goodman game stuff. And last time he was like, hey, we don't do that.
Interesting.
So I used to put the crit die in some of the early stuff I did, then I stopped doing it because Goodman games stuff didn't. And now it seems like that is coming back.
All right, well, there we go. So it might be easier to determine than we think and coming up in the future.
It also makes it easier when you're running it, when it's right there in the stat block.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we have our last controversial question before we get to some new ones for you guys. And it is, if engaged with multiple enemies, how many withdrawal attacks are allowed? Now, let's go through a couple little handouts before Bob explodes on me here. Elena, if you could bring up handout 8A. So we're talking about a monster surrounded by a party of 6 people. The monster is attacking the party. The party's attacking them. I'm thinking that's all active combat right there, right? I understand Bob's point of view. Bob, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but your point of view is if the monster is attacking the fighter is the one engaged in active melee, not the other 5 people. Is that correct?
If the fighter is attacking the monster, or the monster is attacking the fighter, that is the person they are actively meleeing with. You can have 5 people pounding on a monster. They're all actively in melee with it. But that monster, if it has 1 attack, is actively attacking.
All right. So on page 95, if we bring up handout 8A, it says once a character is engaged in melee, they cannot back away without opening themselves up for attack. If the character or monster withdraws from an active melee, whether to retreat or move to a new position or attempt some other action, the opponent immediately receives a single free attack. So it does say 1 single free attack. So we've got a group of 5 party members coming up. If the monster does a breath weapon or some kind of surrounding attack, is that considered active melee with the entire party?
Breath weapon isn't melee.
Nope, not melee.
All right. What if it's like a swinging strike?
Melee.
And it hits like 2 or 3 people.
Well, then
like
it's making 2 or 3 attack rolls, or you house ruled combat in DCC.
Monsters don't have to follow the rules, first off.
That is true.
Maybe
But if
melee
we're
is
talking
dependent
rules
on
as written, that's the show, right?
But
perhaps
when it comes-
melee is dependent on the reach of the weapon. The dragon can be, as big as a house, but can you poke it with the thing you have in your hand?
Well, I guess we need to determine if this combat action is happening. If your character is engaged with like 6 goblins and the hobgoblin dies and all 6 of the goblins run away, do you get an attack on each one of them?
No.
Sirius, what do you think?
Attack roll on each one.
Well, if they're running away from combat because they've engaged in combat with your person.
Okay. This is like a split-second action.
So they have to be within 5 feet for a man-sized creature. So we're probably not going to really have a group of. We may have a horde of goblins. Let's be honest, on a person. So I don't think that exact scenario is going to be that common. But if you have 3 people withdraw from 1 person, rules as written, I think say yes. As a judge, I would say no.
All right. And Daniel, you had a comment. So
I think that you have to interpret the rules through the lens of the game. And if you're talking about like the withdrawal free attack, it's like an instant action because your weapon is ready and it's right there. And you cannot swing like a Ginsu knife and whirl around and hit 27 people in 1 second. It's just not going to happen. You get 1 free attack. If 7 people break away from you, pick 1. If the monster is surrounded by a party and the party runs away, pick 1. Hopefully, the warrior was smart enough to use his mighty deed to give you some buffer from that attack. But it could be that the monster has an attack that, although it's directed at 1 fleeing person, could affect more.
And James, let's say we got a big Cyclops, right? And he's fighting a party of 5 people. That Cyclops decides to run away. Do all 5 of those people get a free attack when he withdraws?
I think there's room for situational, like where are the characters, right? Like, are they like there's 3 on one leg and 2 on another? Let's just say that. Let's just throw that out. Because Cyclops is tall, right? They're not going to be like face to face with them. So he runs away. I think at least 1 party member on each of those legs should get an attack because they're going to be right there. That thing moves fast. I mean, regardless of what you think combat's like, it goes really quick. All of a sudden, someone's like ducking, faking, moving, and they're away from you. And so, I think if we have a group like that, I say, luck it out. Let's roll luck and see where you land. And if everyone succeeds on their luck roll, they all get an attack. If they don't, then the guy's gone.
Julian, what do you think? What's the rules on this? Now, let's say normally a dragon probably wouldn't run, but if a dragon did run, you've got like 6 of your guys around there fighting the dragon. If the dragon flies away, do they each get a chance to try to hit the dragon?
Yeah, 100%. I will. I mean, in this later situation you posed, I'm giving everybody in melee with it on a big thing. If it flees, I'm giving them an attack. Generally speaking, there might be some situational weirdness, but generally speaking, yes. And the other thing you pose where there's multiple people fleeing, and do they get one more, more than one attack on more than one fleeing person entity? No, absolutely not. One attack per fleeing, and one attack, is your full number of attacks, no matter how many things are fleeing.
All right, Bob, what about this? Let's say we've got this, Displacer Beast. Displacer Beast has 2 attacks, 2 action, because one of each of its little whipper tentacles, right? Okay, so it smacked a couple people. It smacked Cyrus and it smacked Matt. Cyrus and Matt both try to flee. Do I get 2 attacks on them as they flee because I get 2 actions?
While I at the table would probably give it both of its actions, that's not really what it's talking about there, because Joseph is on record as saying it's not a full attack action, it's a smack, right? He calls it the free smack rule.
Yeah.
So rules is written, it should get 1. But if Cyrus and Matt have been real smart Alex at the table, I might take both. But no, it should be 1.
All right.
Well,
on the past episode of the Reaver Express, I want you to know that I did change my opinion, and I was kind of going with the focus of who am I actively engaged with. So I think you kind of won me over on that one. Does anybody have any other thoughts on that one? Bruce?
Just glad you.
No, I'm in general agreement with everybody. A group of 5 can attack 1. Doesn't work the other way around.
All right. Well, if we don't hear anything else, we got our brand new questions for 2023. Elena, if you could bring up question 9 for us. This question was kind of partially submitted by Cirrus. On page 78, there is a table of attack roll modifier conditions. Table 1-4. Do the opposite of those circumstances. If the qualifying circumstances are reversed, does the opposite penalty happen? So, Elena, if you could bring up handout 9A for us, you guys will see that, like, if you're kneeling, sitting, or prone, it's +2. Right? Well, let's go to entangled first. So, defender is entangled, +1D. Attacker is entangled, -1D. So it kind of has the opposite right there. But let's say like blinded. If a defender is blinded, they get a +2. The defender gets a +2 to attack the blind person, right? But what does the attacker get? Where's the opposite of that condition? Does the attacker get a -2 or do they get a -4? Bob, you got any thoughts about this one?
You're talking about if the attacker is blind, there's actually precedent for that in Mighty Deeds, and it's ugly. If you're blind, you don't want to attack. It's like move in a random direction, I think -7 to hit.
Mm-hmm. There is a breakdown.
It's -8. If you can bring up,
here we are.
We've got the handout. Bring up handout 9B.
And it does scale.
On page 89, the third result, I think, is blinded. The opponent is completely blinded for 1d4 rounds. They flail about with wild attacks, suffering a -8, and can only move in a random direction at half speed. So we do have a precedence for blinded, but we don't have any kind of precedence for paralyzed or prone or entangled.
If the attacker is paralyzed, he can't attack, right?
Can't move.
So we don't need to worry about that one. I love this. I absolutely adore this question, just because there's so much meat on it, because all of these things are kind of different, right?
Yep.
But like higher ground, you get an advantage for being on the higher ground, so you get a plus to hit. So it doesn't say, under defender, lower ground have penalty. I wouldn't necessarily reverse it.
Right.
I don't think they're all reversible, but I think there's room for interpretation on them for house rules.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at invisible, that's a good one for not being reversible, because you get a +2, but and a -2 doesn't seem to be enough for someone who's defending that's invisible. Matter of fact, if you go to page 173 and they talk about the invisible companion, and they specifically, as your roll increases and the invisible companion is stronger, it goes from an attack modifier of a +1 all the way up to a +5. So you also have a precedence there as far as how strong the invisible attacker is, may adjust the reverse on that one.
Cyrus, what do you think? Because you had some thoughts about the table in the first place.
Oh, so I think it's a great question, because it's very light on the core definition of what these are. The raw on this is wide open, so it's a great conversation. And for example, the other day I was knocked prone in Reaver Express, and Matt said you can't cast spells while prone, and my reaction was, what do you mean? I didn't say this. What do you mean? It doesn't say that. Prone's just a modifier. I didn't say that though, because I was like, oh, as a judge, that's exactly what I would say. That's the right thing to do, because I just got my butt knocked on the ground. I got to get myself and collect myself. It'd be different maybe if I was crawling. Situationally, that's the right ruling. And I think this part of raw is it really depends upon the judge. And I think this goes back to the encumbrance rule in DCC, because I think this, if you understand how encumbrance works per raw, you get this. And I would ask, does anyone know the raw on encumbrance? It's awesome. I love it. It's my favorite rule.
The encumbrance on raw is if it makes sense that they should carry that much. Otherwise, give them a penalty.
Use common sense. It says it in the book.
Yeah,
there you go. I love rules like that. And there's rules like that in DCC.
Well, so we've got a darkness spell, right? We've got the cleric has a darkness spell. It's usually one that gets cast quite a bit. Handout 9C on page 258. It doesn't tell us what darkness does, besides all light is extinguished. It doesn't give any kind of penalty for someone in the darkness. It doesn't give any, what happens when we cast darkness. They're just in the dark. There's no spell results that say there's a negative hit modifier or negative this or negative that. So you got to kind of go back to these conditions for, spells in certain instances. And some of the conditions aren't going to be listed on the condition table. So can you reverse those, Tim? Can you kind of go off of what's there and build off of that?
You can build off of it, but I don't think it equates to a one-to-one on the reverse side. And just like most other things, it has to be situational and thematic based on what's going on at the table at the time. And if, I don't know, my go-to rule, and this is the thing I love about luck and with DCC and MCC, is the fact that if there's ever a question, you know what? Roll for luck. Do you make the luck? Okay, then I'm going to give you what you wanted. If you didn't make the luck check, guess what? You don't get it. So even if something isn't rules is written, is it specified? Luck it out. See what happens.
Yeah. Good.
So we've got a precedence here for entangled. Attacker is entangled in a net or otherwise, -1D to attack and missile fire. A defender is entangled, +1D if you're attacking someone who's entangled with melee or missile fire. Elena, if you can bring up handout 9D. This is the spell Spiderweb on page 196. You cast the Spiderweb that entangles all your foes, and they have to make a DC 20 strength or agility check just to get out of this web. Now, of course, this isn't a net. This is a sticky spider web. It's obviously something different than just, entangled with a rope or something like that. You got your feet tied up. But it does kind of set some boundaries there for Entangled itself. So DC 20 is much harder, I think, than, you know, a -2 to attack or you know, a +2 to hit somebody that's entangled. And this spider web is going to entangle foes. That's its whole purpose. So in this specific instance, would you ignore the regular attack modifier table and use the spell results, Daniel?
Yes.
Yes.
It's an extraordinary circumstance.
Just checking.
Exactly.
I'm just
And-
gonna make it up on the fly. I'm not
So-
looking at the book.
Sorry, going back to blindness for 1 second.
Yeah.
When I wrote Chanters in the Dark, there's a good chance that PCs will end up blinded in that, at least temporarily. And I thought that I had the rules as written, and Michael Curtis came back with a whole stack of other bad things that happen when you blind that I had not really been aware of. So if you look at that, that's pretty well Michael Curtis having crawled through the rule book and correcting me on, you know, I'm like, okay, it's first little adventure. It can't be that bad. No, it can be way worse than that. Don't worry.
Well, the one I kind of have a little bit of an issue with is Defender is helpless, paralyzed, sleeping, or bound. Only +1D. I mean, Julian, isn't that kind of like an auto kill if somebody's sleeping? Can we just coup de grace?
You know, it's a little situational in terms of it, you know, is the guy just sleeping and completely helpless, surrounded by enemies? Then obviously this is just a coup de grace. That's common sense. Is there team B? There's one enemy paralyzed amidst a whole group of enemies who are not paralyzed, and you're trying to weave in there and hit your one enemy, you know, and coup de grace while staying out of trouble with all the other dudes in melee around him, you know, then I could see how it's not totally automatic. It still +1D seems a little weak to me, but what I'm trying to imagine is how do you do a missile fire out of a net? I'm just trying to imagine like a bow, or, you know, I don't know. Call me. I mean, I
Crossbow.
Blowgun.
very, very careful. Well, a blowgun, I guess, you know, but a longbow. I mean,
A crossbow.
what do I know?
Yeah, crossbow.
Laser rifle. I mean, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So Matt, here's my thought on coup de grace and why I generally don't allow them unless I feel for expediency. And this is dark. Jen and I have friends who literally the wife was upstairs sleeping when someone broke into the house and repeatedly stabbed her. And she came out of it better than her husband, who was conscious and downstairs, who came running up to save her. Just because someone's asleep doesn't mean you can kill them in one shot, flat out. The world doesn't work that way. And you know, if it's a matter of expediency, okay, there's one guy, he's beaten down, we all just want to move on. That's one thing. But just telling players, oh yeah, this is real simple. It's not. It's not at all. That fight with 2 people against one assailant in the bedroom took 20 minutes. Nah.
You're gonna struggle to save your life, right? That's what you're saying. You know, it's not like, oh yeah, the guy's got a knife, I'm dead. No, you want to live.
Well, in game terms too, the dice will do what the dice will do. There's always a chance that things are going to go horribly wrong, no matter how big your dice
Or you
is.
might roll a crit and kill them instantly. It does
Yep.
happen.
Or you could
For sure.
fumble.
And maybe
Exactly.
it's a, you know, beggar on the streets of Lankmar, or maybe it's the Overlord, or maybe it's a Demon Lord. So
Well, let's get our final answers on this question. Are the attack roll modifier conditions found on table 1.4 of page 78 the opposite if qualifying circumstances are reversed? Stefan, what is your final answer on this one?
you can't reverse them, but you should build off of them.
I'm gonna say no. They're not automatically reversible. You know, I've got a couple issues with someone squeezing through a tight space. I've never actually seen that in 3 years of playing DCC. Be it a -1 die.
Doom of the Savage Kings has it.
Does it really?
Mm-hmm.
So
People of the Pit.
Yes, that's one of them.
kneeling, sitting, you know, a -2 to missile fire. If I'm laying prone, when I was in the Army, you know, we were taught how to fire our M16 prone, and that actually gave you more stability.
I was
just
just
gonna
gonna
say,
say, prone is the
Stefan,
best way to shoot.
Yeah, it's not a knife.
Right.
Well, that's what I'm
Crocodile Dundee
saying.
here.
So if and that's for defender is prone. So if you're trying to hit somebody who's prone, you know, they get a -2. Well, let's see, how does that even work?
It's harder. It's harder to hit a prone
they're
defender
small
because he has
with a missile fire. So if the attacker is prone, I could see a +2 because they're more stable. You know,
So it
maybe
is.
shooting a laser rifle or something like that.
Ranged
So-
weapon, maybe.
Yeah, definitely situational. Bob, what's your final answer on this one?
I don't think they're immediately reversible, and I don't think in all cases, if reversed, there should be a additional bonus. But in many cases, such as blindness or others, you can definitely go through the rules. There's examples that are there, and yeah, they certainly apply in many cases.
Bruce, final word?
You know, we have to remember that table is a judge's aid. It's not only loosely tethered to rules, right? Those aren't rules. But some of those things like the entanglement, there's a very finite state defined by the spell. It's not a rule, but it's a result that acts like a rule. And so my bottom line is, this is so highly situational. You should just be really flexible and be ready to pivot.
All right, James, final answer on this one?
They're not reversible. They're not, you know, equiposed with each other. They're a framework to work out stuff at the table as it occurs. That's all.
Daniel?
My general viewpoint is very much the same, with the exception that I will say the dice chain is still better than using that table at all.
Julian?
Yeah, I'm pro dice chain and I'm anti looking stuff up. So that I'm definitely situational.
Matt, how about yourself?
They are 100% reversible, each one of them. No, I'm totally kidding. They're not at all. Yeah, it's completely situational. Yeah,
Kick 'em off.
situational. I think it's a good place to start. There's some, you know, as sort of a guideline, but of course, it's all depending on what's happening in the scenario and what's happening at the table, of course.
Darius?
No.
What do you think about the answers for this table here? Did we answer your questions?
Oh, I didn't have any questions. I just thought it'd be awesome to talk about.
You want more results on the table, right? You want more stuff on the table.
Oh, me? No, actually, I'd rather it be. I think those are great. I think the table is a great set of guidelines. Oh, this is a horrible raw thing because I think they're great guidelines. But a lot of that stuff, like in the chat, there's all the conversations about, like, what if you're using the Chinese football, the chalk? I can't remember the name, but what if you're using that? What if you get a bonus for that? What if you're using a crossbow prone, but not all, you know? So it's situational, and I think that's the judge's role. That's the message I take away from it. That table is examples, but overall interpreting it is the judge's role. And that's one to grow on.
All right, and Tim, what's your final word on the matter?
You know, I think Daniel nailed it with, it's a dice chain thing. The more I look at that table, the more I think this is what the dice chain is used for. That's how you get your advantage, by moving up and down the chain. That's to me is DCC, MCC, XCC all day.
All right, our last question for the evening, for the first episode of 2023 is: can luck be used? Elaine, if you could bring up question 10, please. Can luck be used to increase the result on the critical hit table to achieve a different result? So you've got a monster or yourself who's rolled a critical hit. Well, you've got a player who's rolled a critical hit. They get the result of 4 and they want to increase it to a 5. Would you let them use luck? Daniel Bishop.
Absolutely yes.
And why?
Why not?
Is it the rules that you can use luck to?
If you can use luck to modify your own die rolls, and that is your die roll, then yes, the rules as written should allow you to do so.
All right, Julian, what are your thoughts?
I couldn't agree more. I think luck is there to spend. I'm not necessarily going to tell you what the next critical result or results are. So, you know, I mean, you may.
What if they're already looking? What if
they may be
you know,
looking, but they may not
Okay.
be looking. So, you
All
know,
right.
I mean,
Oh, there's an answer for that. You cannot spend luck once the result is known.
That's very true.
You know, so but yeah, I mean, there's nothing in Raw that says you cannot spend luck on your roll. I looked. And so luck actually can impact a critical roll in two ways, because your modifier also can impact it, which means, of course, by spending luck, you can reduce your modifier. But
Ghostly Squid in the chat says, like, you know, except halfling. So, you know, can the halfling jump in, help out fighters crit check even after?
Yes.
Absolutely, because what the frick else is a good halfling?
All right. Well, it was saying like once the result is known. So
once the result is known, you can't spend luck. That is the rule.
So
we mostly ignore that. We mostly ignore that, but you know, just like some judges let people spend luck, and they're like, well, you're still not there, and let them spend luck again, where it says you can only spend luck once. But yeah, technically speaking, if the judge says you missed, you're done. Which is why if they're close, I'll give people a chance. And sometimes I'll do that if they're close, but over, just so they're not sure.
Now, in show of hands, does anyone else play that way? Do you play where you tell them if they hit or missed or not, and then they can use luck? Or do they have to use luck before they know if they've hit or missed? Raise your hand if you're in the camp where you tell them if they missed and then they can use luck. Only 3 of us? Man, you guys are some hard, mean judges.
Ask that again. Ask that again.
I
have a problem
go
with the
so far
wording
to
you
tell them the DC before they roll. I don't care. I encourage the use of luck.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Oh, sorry. I tell them if they miss, but I don't tell them how much it would take.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah, don't do that.
I don't tell them either way. I think that encourages spending luck, because sometimes they've hit and they're still spending luck for a better hit without realizing.
Yeah.
Because I'm that mean. I'm the mean guy that keeps the kids football.
Bob is mean. Like, he doesn't tell you if you hit it or not. He's like, you want to stay on that? I'm like, what do you mean, Bob? Did I hit him or not? He's like, well, I don't know. Do you want to stay?
Stand on
I'm like,
14?
well, tell me if I hit him, Bob, and then I'll tell you if I want to stay.
My players are very good at sussing out a DC or an AC, so that doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Well, and once it's known, it's known, right? The judge doesn't have to say you missed. The player goes, I rolled a 13. I know I need a 14. You know, so they just add. I'm not telling them they missed. They already know.
Tim, how do you feel about it?
So I actually, and this is where, your past and your history works into it. The first DCC GM that our judge that I played under was Jeff Bernstein, and he was famous for just looking, going, "Is that your final answer?" whenever we would roll, and we didn't know the AC at the time, or we didn't know what we needed, he would just, "Is that your final answer?" And we would burn or not burn, and it was either yes or no. And he didn't. If we went over, so be it. If we were under, okay, you missed, and roll from there. So that's kind of the way I do it.
All right. Well, we're kind of stepping away from the main question, though, which is, can you use luck to change the result of a critical roll? So, Elaine, if you could bring up handout 10A. For the viewers out there, let's say we rolled a 3, stunning crack to the forehead, inflict a 1d3 damage, an extra 1d3 damage, foe falls to the bottom of the initiative. We know that a 5 is a solid strike to the torso, inflict an extra 1d6. We want to get that extra d3 damage. Can they use 2 luck to bring that 3 to a 5? Cirrus, yes or no?
Yeah, I think they can. It's more awesome that way. It's cooler that way. Let them do it.
Would you tell them what, if they wanted to say, hey, what's a 5? Would you tell them what it is?
On the crit table?
Yeah.
No, they got to look it up themselves.
I have to look it up. Just tell them.
They're not going to play the game.
I already know by that point.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think? Can they use luck to bring that up?
Yeah, absolutely. I am kind of in the camp of not, previewing what the next step up is if they don't already know. So I kind of leave that to, the fates, but absolutely add luck to a critical roll for sure.
Tim, can you add luck to change the effect of a critical?
House rule, we had always said no. You can roll for the, you can add luck to roll 2 hit, but you can't add it to change your crit roll.
All right, Julian.
I think the more interesting question is, can the thief add luck dice into his damage rolls?
Yes.
Yes.
However, which I would say yes, but can get really crazy. But yeah, I would certainly allow it. And I think there should also be some bargaining. Like, I'll tell you what, yeah, you could spend 1 luck point or 2 luck points, or, for 3 luck points, maybe I'll let you roll a D6 on an extra D6 on the crit table. How would that, maybe we should bargain a little bit.
It's always a bargain. I love that. Daniel, can you use luck to increase the critical result?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, James.
Yep, it's the equivalent of the thief's spell burn.
Bruce, speaking of thief, we really didn't bring that up.
Nice.
Let's say that thief has a D7 and they roll a D20 crit. They crit, they roll like a 5. They say, I want to use 1 point of luck to roll a D7.
Oh no, use 3. Come on, thief.
Yeah.
Yeah, use 3 die 7.
Don't be a wuss.
Yeah.
Bruce.
I've watched it. I think at least on 2 occasions, a thief just blow up the bad guy on a crit, on a backstab.
Yeah.
Yep. Julian, you've seen the players win because of that.
Certainly. So, and as they should. That's what he's been trapped, finding for the whole adventure. He should be able to melt out of the shadows. And if things fall into place, the thief should then be able to ace the boss in 1 shot if, everything rolls.
Why not?
Right. Yeah.
Here. Otherwise, combat with a thief is not fun if you strip away those abilities, their ability to use luck for damage or to increase their crits. It's just, okay, well, I've got a short sword and I can do a D6 and I've got no strength bonus. Meanwhile, the warrior's doing 35 points over there with a crit.
Yeah.
Bruce, what's your final word? Can luck be used to increase the result on a critical result?
Yes, it can. Absolutely. But I can say I've never had a player ask me to do it, but I'm wondering if any of my players watch this. I might be learning that come Monday in my next hubris game.
I've run Sinister. Yes, they can. I've run Sinister Sutures of the Sempstress twice, and both times it was death by crits to the boss there. Once with the thief, and then once with the fighter with the halfling boosting him up. And it was glorious both times.
My final answer is yes, you can use luck. I pretty much let you use luck on any dice that you roll, period. And Bob, I think we got your answer already right at the beginning, but go ahead and tell us one last time. What's your final word?
I think we are all in unanimous agreement that that's rules is written. Tim has a house rule, right? But yeah, it's the way it works. And
Bob,
I think it's good.
Can I invoke Jen to say hi real quick?
I don't know.
Invoke Jen Brinkman. Anyway, we're gonna go through. I want to thank you guys for being guests on our inaugural episode of 2023. Tim, thank you for being here. Do you got anything coming up?
Yeah, Zine Quest. It comes due in February. Hey, Jen. So yeah, February is Zine Quest, and I've got a reverse adventure for Mutant Crawl Classics coming out called Badass Bunnies, where the players, I turned the Tibar into a playable class, and they get to fight a group of zeros that are invading their home.
Bob, do you have anything coming up that you would like to divulge?
Yeah, so at 9:00, Sanctum Secora returns with season 3. With Mark Bruner, we're going to be covering The Dolphin Cross, the unfinished sequel to Face in the Frost by John Bellairs. And then 2 weeks from now, we will be returning with the Sanctum Secorum reading room.
All right, Jen, thanks for popping in and saying hello. Do you got any surprises for us?
The day before the reading room show, join Spellburn here.
That's right. Spellburn is back.
Yeah.
Bruce, thank you for being a guest. You got anything coming up that you'd like to share with us?
Thank you for having me. Nope, nothing special. I'm just a humble judge running games over on Dungeon Crawler. So I'd love to see everybody out there.
You've got a weekly Hubris game. Is that correct?
That is correct. It is very popular right now, but please poke your head in there if you like Hubris. And we often have openings coming up Monday nights, 6:30.
And that is on the Dungeon Crawler server. Sirius, what do you got coming up? Anything you can tell us about? Any cons you're headed to?
Yeah, it looks like February I'll be launching my first zine. It's a adventure I've been looking to publish for a while that I think some people in the audience have played through. The Caves of Refuge, also known as the Mines of Misery.
What's going to be the final name?
Oh, it's the same thing. It depends if you're clueless or not. So if you're one of the local yokels, it's the Caves of Refuge. That's the safe place to go. But turns out it used to be called the Mines of Misery.
And if I'm not mistaken, isn't there like a Etten in there? Or there's a two-headed guy in that, isn't there?
Spoilers.
Well, yeah, I bumped them up to 3 heads because of that whole thing where you burn luck to crit the 2 heads off. So we've got 3 now. We've got a safety head.
All right. Matt, how are you doing? Thank you for being a guest. You got anything coming up you'd like to share with us?
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to be playing some games at Con of the North here in Twin Cities, and then I'll be at Gary Con playing some games as well next in March, I guess. And if you are a 5e player, I wrote some monsters for upcoming Dungeon Denizens and a few other 5e projects for Goodman Games. So check them out.
Outstanding. I will see you at GaryCon, and I've already submitted 4 of my games, not to conflict with Bob's games. James, thank you for being a guest on the show. I hope you had fun. Tell us about what you have coming up. You got Cats that is done and getting pushed out. What's on the page after that?
Yeah, so Cats will be in general release sometime probably in February, end of February. And then I'm still working on my Cyber Sprawl Classics net dungeoneering supplement on Patreon. So Patreon at Electrotext there. You can check me out. Then I've got a bunch of stuff coming up for Goodman Games. I'm not sure I can even talk about any of it.
You can tell us one little. Everybody comes on here and says a secret. You can tell us, a little tiny clip about it.
I'm doing the same thing. You can't.
Daniel.
What?
Daniel.
No, I got another thing.
Careful, we don't want those angry emails from Michael Curtis.
There's an NDA on one of these for sure, but the other one, there's a big Mutant Crawl Classics work underway at Goodman Games.
That was if you're talking about Radiation Crawl Classics, that was announced at Gen Con.
Nope, something else. Something else. All
right, Stefan, what do you got coming up?
I am dropping a Kickstarter in 1 week from today, probably about sometime late morning. Elfland Beyond the Fields We Know. I dropped the link in the chat, but I got a Judge's Toolkit scene, 2 full-size adventures, a pamphlet funnel, a sew-on patch, and our first stretch goal is for a new song from the band Loot the Body. So I'm trying to pack a whole lot in.
Very impressive. Stefan, I only have one question. Is the cover going to be red or green?
Well, people can vote on whether the patch is red or green, and another stretch goal down the line is to get a sticker of whichever one doesn't win. So you got something whichever team you're on.
Julian, how are you doing? Thank you for coming on the show. It was a blast having you. I love having you on here. What do you got coming up that you can share with us?
I'm about to drop my new adventure, Dead Dwarves Have No Deeds. It is a no, okay.
I'll play it. That sounds good.
I have been I've been having a blast actually running my local new campaign called Planet Skull. If you're in Minneapolis and you want to drink beer and eat pizza, then I guess you can try to find me and then come over and drink beer and eat pizza with us. We've been trying to do that mostly physical if we can keep away from the germs, and that's kind of a America meets MCC meets DCC type thing, having a lot of fun with that. And then working on Dying Earth, working on that thing that James mentioned, unspecified MCC madness. We got a little tournament action coming with the Gen Con madness in the summer. And getting what I am really excited about is running at Gary Con my high-tided Hellwater Halls kind of living game that I'm going to run 4 sessions of, but people can play multiple sessions and screw each other up in the next game and leave love notes to each other as what they found for what they find and stuff like that. So it's kind of it's almost like a tiny mini campaign that I get to run at the con. So if that sounds fun, come on and try it out at GaryCon.
Absolutely. Daniel, last but not least, thank you for being a guest. What do you got coming up?
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm also going to GaryCon, so lots of the crew will be there. DCC Day for next year is, I understand, going to have something good because I wrote it. Doing a Patreon, and there is that big project that we can't talk about. So,
is your big project an MCC as well?
No,
but telling.
That would be telling. But the Dungeons and Denizens book is going to be coming out, and I did some of the conversions for DCC for that, and I got a little bit of writing into the Dying Earth, so that makes me happy.
Outstanding. I've got a Kickstarter coming up too. I'm trying to get it pushed out to February. I'm not sure if it's going to be the next module, which would be the House of Entradar. I've already commissioned 8 art pieces from Davin Klutz. So I've got him on retainer, and he is working. Those are supposed to be done beginning of February. So I've commissioned some art. This year I'm trying to put out some material. I've been slacking off running all these games, playing all these games. So it's either going to be the module, or I've got the reverse spell zine called Kagam that might be in February. I'm not sure which one yet. Maybe both. But keep on the lookout for those. Anyway, thank you everyone for being a guest. I had a blast having you all on here. Have a good night, everyone, and tune into Sanctum Quorum coming up in an hour and a half, Bob.
Yep.
Hour and a half, Sanctum Quorum right here. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Say again, Daniel?
Sorry, after I shared an email with Bob earlier today, I went on to Amazon and bought the book.
Nice.
I don't like it.
Raw will return on January 24th, and I'll see you guys all on Friday for the Reaver Express. We'll see y'all later, everybody.
Awesome.
Night.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks.